All right, we are recording. Welcome. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar. We are building relationships today. So, building relationships, finding out how to foster those relationships with county commissioners, your auditor, and state's attorney. We would love to have you join us in the chat, unmute, ask questions as you would like. Please share your tips and tricks of how you've built relationships in your local counties and local districts. We would appreciate that feedback. My name is Lindy Berg. I am the Area 1 Program Coordinator with Conservation Leadership and Planning. We have a couple people from our team on today. We have Amber on and Leslie, so feel free to message them if you have any direct questions as well. And again, feel free to put any questions in the chat or unmute. We love it when people unmute. So first, I'm going to get started with letting you know and introduce our guest speakers today. So we have a panel today, which it's not very typical that we have a panel of people on our webinar. So this is a short take webinar today. Typically, we go 25 minutes or so, and then 5-10 minutes of Q&A. And so if you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to, at the end, share those as well. Sometimes we do go a little bit longer. We do have a panel today, so we might go a little bit longer, but we will always cut it off at about an hour if we end up communicating a lot and have a lot of questions. So we have Anthony on, and so I'm just going to share who's with us today, and then I'll let you guys kind of introduce yourselves. So we have Anthony on, who is a past county commissioner and supervisor, and then Sally, Anthony came from Adams County. Sally is a Dunn County auditor and treasurer. And then we have Josh Fry, who is our state's attorney with Nelson and Towner County. So I will start with Anthony, if you just want to introduce yourself really quick. Maybe I did a good enough job, but maybe you want to share a little bit more. How many years of service you have and all that kind of good stuff.
Sure. Thank you, Lindy, and good morning, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to share some of my experiences. I previously served as a supervisor for the Adams County Soil Conservation District and most recently served a term as an Adams County Commissioner.
Thank
Uh,
you.
and
Oh,
I'll
go
just
ahead.
add, so live near Hettinger, I guess, which is Adams County. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Sally.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I have worked in Dunn County for almost 9 years now, and I have been the Dunn County Auditor Treasurer for the past 4 years and had the privilege of working really closely with Shasta Blackford, our Dunn County Soil Conservation. So it's been a real pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks, Sally. And Josh.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My name is Josh Fry. I'm the state's attorney currently in Nelson County and Towner County. I also previously had the opportunity to serve as the McHenry County state's attorney. Kind of lived all over the north central part of the state and been involved in these roles as state's attorney since 2016. So happy to be
Thanks.
here.
Thanks, Josh. Yeah, so in some districts and some counties, these are big relationships to begin building, especially if you're new and you're unsure of who to talk to, who to build relationship with. These are some key stakeholders that you want to prepare and build those relationships with. And I know there's some challenges that some folks have in some local counties, and hopefully we can provide some tips and tricks today to help foster those relationships. So I just have some questions that I'm going to ask of our panelists today. And then, like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. So Anthony, I'm going to start with you. And Anthony is special because he is a past commissioner and supervisor. So he has kind of a lens on both worlds. And so how do you feel how important it is for SEDs to provide reports or updates to commissioners, attend commissioner meetings, and how often should they attend meetings or provide updates? And knowing that this is going to be different probably for each county. There's some commissioners that request probably more attendance than others, but what are your thoughts?
Yes, thank you. And I think each county, each relationship certainly is unique. The only answer to that I would personally say is wrong is if there's no communication or no relationship. And so in that case, I think there provides a tremendous opportunity to build one. But let me just share a few comments, I guess, as to the importance of that. At least in Adams County, and likely in many counties, I believe that the county commission can be a strong advocate for the soil conservation district work. In many cases, in particular with the tax levy that funds the SCD, when folks get their property tax statement, I just got one of mine yesterday, in fact. Oftentimes the taxpayer questions where those dollars are going to. And so I think from that standpoint, the more that the county commission understands the work of the soil conservation district and how those dollars are being used, the better the commission then can advocate for the work of the soil conservation district. Because at least from my experience, many taxpayers go to the county commission to ask how those dollars are being spent. Regarding the frequency, I think in the case where there isn't a relationship, I think that it's critically important and at least annually that there be a face-to-face with the county commission. Personally, I always appreciated when people came to the commission meetings. That to me is much more impactful and powerful than an email or text or some non-personal communication. So I believe at least annually should be a minimum whereby if the commission allows, certainly being respectful of their time, that the SCD would be on the agenda, provide some level of update for the past year likely, and even plans for the upcoming year to support the levy that will be in place. And I think that that can work to build a strong relationship and help the commission understand the work that is being done. Beyond that, to me, it's a question. So if there is a relationship today, certainly commissions change. As the commissioners may change, I think it's always healthy to ask what level of involvement or what level of information the commission may wish to have and be respectful of that because certainly each commissioner may have a desire for a different level of information. So those would be some thoughts. More is better, and I think at a minimum there should be at least annual communication, and then including on newsletters and those types of things can be helpful as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's one thing that you can always do, especially if you're new or even if you haven't gone and you've been around for a while, to attend a commissioner meeting and ask them. Just ask, introduce yourself, ask them how often they would like you to attend those meetings. And it really is a point of showing them the value that you're providing the local community so that they can advocate for you because they're a huge piece there. And they do get the calls, right? You get the calls from the taxpayers and the people and the stakeholders and the people from the community that if they're questioning anything, they're the ones that are going to call you. And if you don't know any of that information or who you are, it makes it a little more difficult to advocate for you. Speaking of that, I know you talked about reports and newsletters, things like that. I know we did that as an extension agent as well. How about personal invitations? Sometimes it's nice to get personal invites to local events.
Yeah, I do agree that personal is always best. And I think a lot of that is driven by a relationship and knowing the commissioners. I assume in many of our counties, there is a personal relationship outside of that SCD county commission role. But especially where there isn't that personal relationship, I think the personal invite is always best. And the more you understand or know the county commissioners, the better you'll be able to identify where there may be an interest for the commission to attend a given SCD event. So personal is best, but build that relationship so that you can best understand what may make sense and where the interest may lie with the county commission and the SCD work.
Awesome, thank you. As on the side of a supervisor, do you have any other advice for supervisors that are on the call of what they can do? So obviously between employees and supervisors, would you recommend they both attend together or would you recommend one over the other?
Yeah, I think that that's a good question, and my initial thought is that some representation from the supervisors along with the district manager may be most appropriate. Certainly, too many people may be ineffective in a county commission meeting setting, but to show some support for the district manager, and likely there are then personal relationships based on the group that comes from the SCD relative to the county commission as a whole. So I think it is good to come in tandem. However, I think that district manager role is also very important to have the face of the SCD with the county commission as well.
Awesome. That's great feedback. Okay, so Sally, we're gonna move to you as the auditor treasurer. What are some of the common questions that you get from SCDs, and how do you collaborate with your
Well,
valuation?
I think most of it from an auditor treasurer perspective usually has to do with budget and funding. But that's very important because sometimes just because the county might not be able to help with funding, we might know of another department or another entity who can. For instance, we're doing, I think it was last year and the year before for sure, we did some work with our Soil Conservation Center, but we funded some money through the Water Resource Board. So it kind of, and then kind of transferred it over to a project that the soil conservation is working on. So it's just kind of important if you have questions about funding or budgeting. And I think it's a good relationship because, as an auditor or treasurer, we can also learn something too, by getting out there and helping and finding these resources. So it's a good relationship. It builds a very healthy relationship.
So how would you recommend, and you can speak to maybe those that have been around for a little bit, but maybe they're building that relationship with their auditor, or maybe those that are just stepping into the role. How do they communicate with you? We're kind of in this world today that we email and
Right.
we don't pick up the phone. Sometimes, it depends on the day that you might get your tushy out the door and actually go to your office and say, hey.
I like all forms of communication. I don't mind if it's a phone call, an email, an in-person visit. I know some of the auditors and treasurers, we're always busy doing something. They may prefer an email first that says, hey, do you have time to, a few minutes to chat on the phone, or maybe I could come down, or you could come over, whatever the case may be. But I definitely think with the auditors and treasurers, I would just start with introducing yourself via email, just because it's easier with the schedule and the amount of duties that I promise nobody's ignoring you. It's just really hard sometimes to get there. So I would suggest going that route first.
Yeah, I know some people that maybe they're having challenges or struggles with their local auditors or trying to get questions answered or things like that. And sometimes it is just a matter of, I'll be like, did you go to their office? Did you
Yeah.
some
Yep.
questions? I know
And
as an agent, if I was struggling, I set up a meeting with them and I actually went and I'm like, can you explain this to me? Sometimes that's what's needed.
And don't be afraid either if you can't get a hold of your auditor, reach out to another one. You can always reach out to me. I'll be happy to help you with whatever I know. And then, maybe if your auditor hasn't just answered you back, yeah, I would be more than happy to help. So
Yeah,
please don't ever hesitate to reach out to me either.
that's good advice too, because there's different experience levels, right? You're gonna
Yes.
have auditors that are
Yep.
new and some that have been around for a little bit and might have a little more experience on the SCD world of what's going.
Right. Yep.
Is there anything that you've noticed that when an SCD is asking typically for budget support, that there's things that make it easier on your end if they have certain things prepared or
It kind of just goes back to some of the things that you would present to the commission. Just make sure that you have all of your backup provided to the auditor. Sometimes I don't think it's necessary to go into the weeds with the commission. If the auditor has all of the backup, just because have it there and have it ready should they have questions. But if you can give it to the auditor, a lot of the times we can help get that information conveyed to them. So just kind of all of your backup, what you're doing, what you're working on, if you're working with another entity, because sometimes I think even if maybe if you're a new in the position, you might forget to, oh yeah, I forgot, the water resources is also helping. So that kind of helps a lot with when the commission makes their decision to see that you have reached out and you have done your homework.
Yeah, that's a really good thought. So always, yeah, just be familiar with your auditor. I think sometimes that is
Yes, yeah.
keeping them in the loop.
Communication.
Just keeping in the loop with what you got going on, with even the
Yeah,
challenges that you have. If you're like, oh, I could really use some funding for such and such, ask your auditor. They may have some resources that you probably could.
exactly. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Sally. I'm going to move to Josh, who is our state's attorney. So I'm going to ask you how often you receive calls from soil conservation districts, and what, if you do, what are some of the common questions that you get?
Yeah, so I've been in this role, like I said, for just about 10 years, and I believe I've had one direct phone call or contact with Soil Conservation District. Um, that direct call had to do with contracts, right? Are our agreements up to date, and uh, and what should we do to make them better? So very little interaction generally up front with soil conservation districts, and I think some of that revolves around soil conservation districts not knowing that they can reach out to their state's attorneys for advice. Maybe not necessarily litigation support, but advice nonetheless. So I think that's why one of the reasons I wanted to be here today is just to let everyone know that we are here and that you can reach out to us, um, and we'll help provide any legal opinions that we can to keep you guys moving in the right direction.
Yeah, and so with that, I'm putting in the chat, who has experience building these types of relationships, and what have you done that has helped build those relationships? So if you want to respond to that, that'd be great. But I agree. I think a lot of people either I don't know. I'm not sure if it's they just don't know how to connect with them. I think it's or what exactly to connect about, or the situation or the question might come up, whether it just doesn't process that they should connect with their state's attorney.
Right, yeah, and that's not uncommon just for attorneys in general, is people typically don't go to an attorney until they need them. And so that upfront legal advice can oftentimes help you avoid the having to have a lawyer later. And so frequent communication with counsel is a good thing to prevent, maybe ending up in a courtroom because there is a legal dispute. It could have been handled before it got to that level, so to speak. So, yeah, I mean, I would strongly encourage that relationship building and reaching out, making sure we just know who you are, know what you're up to as a soil conservation district, asking questions about how you do things. We're here to answer those questions, and if we don't know you're there and doing things as a soil conservation district, it's hard for us to participate as well. When it comes to attorneys, a lot of times we're hard to get hold of. We're on the move a lot. It takes us a long time to get back to you sometimes. So I think one of the important lessons you learn quickly in the legal world is that oftentimes there's a keeper of the attorney in the form of a legal assistant, and building a relationship with that person is often your best bet because they're the ones that keep track of us and keep us moving in the right direction. So not just your state's attorney, but their office in general would be a good place to build those relationships. Because when we're not sitting in our chair in our office, they at least know where to find us and say, "Hey, this question came. You should probably do something with this." So, good places to build relationships all around.
That's a good point. The legal assistant. So yes, building that relationship with the legal assistant. If you can't get a hold of your state's attorney, I think every email I sent to Josh regarding this, I CC'd his legal assistant. I'm like, because she probably is dealing with the calendar. She knows all the things. And if he's not getting back to me, she could probably just be like, Josh, here's a little nudge. You have something in your email. Um, so I also want to address that all of your positions can probably be a little intimidating to some new folks. I know Josh pretty well, him being in Towner County, and I was an extension agent in Towner County for almost 10 years, so I'm pretty familiar with Josh. But even with that, I know he's busy. So when I'm calling him or something, I'm like, I know he's busy, but I gotta give him a call. But I know at the same time, he'd be like, oh, yeah, that's my job. Just give me a call. And he's more than happy to answer questions and call at any time and answer anything. So it's great. Okay.
Definitely.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say definitely. Oftentimes, that like I said, that legal assistant is the keeper of the attorney. Your state's attorneys have a lot of duties that require very prompt attention. When we start talking with the court and juvenile court and those kinds of things, and it's really easy to lose a question from the soil conservation district. So, being persistent pays definitely. Those nudges are sometimes important when we're in the middle of a trial, whether or not the language on a clause in your contract is right is sometimes gets shuffled to the back of the triage pile. So um, make sure to be persistent with us, and some of us more than others. So we don't want to forget about you.
Yeah, and I will say too, like some of the things that um, we're always sending people to their local state's attorney from our team. We can't legally provide that kind of advice, and so we're always reaching out to the local state's attorney, recommending people do that and suggesting building those relationships. And even when it comes to the little things like reading century code and even like parliamentary procedure and running a meeting, some people aren't quite sure in little specifics when it comes to running a meeting or the certain laws that are tied to it. And reaching out to your local state's attorney is a big piece in that. So here is a good question in the chat that when you have a local state's attorney that isn't aware of helping your SCD, that it was part of their position until they provided the century code about it, is there something that you would recommend for those state's attorneys that when SCDs approach them and they're like, oh, I don't know that, I didn't realize that was part of my job. Do you have any suggestions for that?
Yeah, so our responsibility, am I on mute? No, okay. Our responsibilities for state's attorneys are typically found in chapter 11-16. In that chapter, it says nothing about working with soil conservation districts, not a word. And so there are a lot of state attorneys that don't understand that that is part of it. The Century Code is very clear, though, in chapter 4.1-20, that we are to provide the legal services necessary for our soil conservation districts. And so simply pointing that out to them, it might not be like you're supposed to represent us on this, but stopping in, introducing yourself, saying, "Hey, I've just got on the soil conservation district. I'm aware you represent the soil conservation district. Maybe you have that century code ready to go with you, and just introduce yourself. It'll give them an opportunity to get up to speed, and that we are responsible for at least some type of legal services to soil conservation districts." Uh, the language in the Century Code is a little funny as to what exactly we are supposed to do for you guys, especially in conjunction with it says that the Attorney General is also supposed to represent you. So it's a little murky, and we might have to take a step back even to look at, can we work with you in this role? If there's a conflict between the district and the county, for instance, we're going to have to back out and find some other way to do it. But just letting them know that, hey, I'm involved with this. We see that, through some training or education that you represent us, just want to introduce ourselves. I think that would get you off on the right foot, especially for your state's attorney to have an opportunity to go find that code and see that, oh man, this is something I'm supposed to be doing. I think that would be a good start to getting the state's attorney on board with helping.
Thank you. One of the common questions that we get a lot is with equipment and policy and those kinds of things. And I will tell you personally, I have done things with policy manuals. I've utilized both the auditor and the local state's attorney to review things to kind of check the box. That way, if something happens, it's not just, well, I wrote it and it just is now the new policy. No, having that support from locally from your state's attorney to check that off. And if you don't have a policy, talking to your auditor about the local county policy is a great starting point. But they can be a great asset in building that too. And I'll leave that for you guys to comment on too. But we have a lot of questions about equipment too, on selling and the process of selling, because there is a process when you're dealing with equipment that deals with taxpayer dollars and how you sell those things. It may be different for each district, but with those questions, I'm always going, talk to your auditor, talk to your local state's attorney. So any comments on either of those?
Yeah, like I said, we're always willing to help, and I agree if there's a policy change that's happening or a policy being implemented, making sure that it complies with the law and our human resources regulations. I think it would be great to reach out and have that conversation and maybe even finding uniformity with other county related entities to make sure that your policies are similar, I think would be a good idea. Yes.
Thanks, Josh.
Always, always reach out.
Yeah. Sally, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think don't ever be afraid to contact the auditor either, because that just kind of like Josh said, that you guys are part of our job. You guys are an entity that we're responsible for, and we're responsible for that relationship as well. So don't ever hesitate or feel intimidated to reach out and um, you know, going back to what Josh said too, be persistent. If you have a question, it's better to get that question answered and get it answered correctly than to, just kind of like Lindy said, well, I just kind of made it myself. It's always good to go back and forth. And again, like I said, it's something, you'd be surprised at what we learn from talking to different entities too. So it's always good to reach out no matter what.
And I have quite a few districts that they reach out because something happened and they have to add something to the policy manual. And every time they do that, I'm like, put it in there, but have it looked over, make sure it sounds good, and make sure that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed. Okay, so here's a tax question, which is a common question. As a small tax-based county, we do not get enough tax dollars to operate. We at one point were told that we can ask for up to 1.5 more mills over the current 2.5. It has been put on the ballot for election to the people. Is this something that is still in the law?
It is, and you could do that, but now you have to do it on a primary or general ballot. You used to be able to hold special elections to get your mills increased, but you can't any longer. If you're going to increase a mill or do something with a bond, anything that's going to increase your budget out of taxpayer dollars, you have to do it on a general or a primary election, but you can do it. So definitely get with your auditor for that, and they can help you get the right wording and get the right question put out there, because we can also get in touch with the Secretary of State's office. They're a great resource for us that we can pass on to you.
Yeah, and one question I have too is when these changes take place, where can they go to find them?
The every time there is a legislative session, there's always going to be something with the election system. So I would go to, trying to think of the website. I'll find it and forward it to you, but you can find all of the bills that were passed, Senate and House bills, and I believe they have them in different sections. So you can go to the election part and look at those. And you can also go to the Secretary of State's office, and they have if there's any changes in election, things like that as well. And now that I'm sure everybody's heard of House Bill 1176 now, and now that 3% cap, that's just kind of hurting everybody this year. So just because you can increase your mills, you have to be very careful about how you do it. So I would definitely suggest getting with your auditor before you do put
Yeah.
anything on the ballot.
Yeah, I think there's still some confusion about all of that, and I mean, it's a lot to take in. It's like, what the geez? Okay, what now? So there was a comment. We were told by our state's attorney that we could not. I called the attorney general, and they said to talk to your state's attorney.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Yeah, I would definitely talk to your auditor because you can increase your mills. But like I said, because of the 3% cap, there's kind of a couple hoops you have to jump through, but it can be done.
Appreciate that. Okay, so feel free to put your questions in the chat. We are on our half hour here, so we're just gonna kind of roll into my last question that I have for all of them. And then if there's any last questions, we can answer those, and then we can stay on for a little bit too after we stop recording. If you guys have questions, we'll be on for a little bit. So I appreciate you guys all being on today. Hopefully this was helpful for everybody. So I just have one last question for you guys, which is any last minute advice on building effective relationships with their commissioner, their auditor, or their state's attorney. And I know you guys have talked a little bit, so maybe it's just something you want to highlight from something you've already said, but Anthony, what would you say is the one thing that you would recommend?
So, a general piece, I guess I would just share is the value of time for each and every one of us personally, but for the commission, for the supervisors, district managers, et cetera, and the importance of efficiency of that time. And so, with all of the communications that happen, the relationship building, et cetera, I think it's important that we're prepared with our message and that we use that time efficiently in our meetings, et cetera. And that's certainly a scarce resource that we all deal with. And so something I think we can all be mindful of.
Well, and I want to emphasize too with the commission employees, there's turnover. I mean, there's turnover in commission in supervisors too. But with employees, sometimes you go without an employee for a while or there's turnover. And so it's really important that that supervisor, they also have some communication with the commissioners. So that way, not only can they introduce the new employee, because I think that's a role that would be great for
Yeah.
supervisors. They're taking the employees, the manager, to the commissioner meeting and introducing them as the new staff. And having that connection with both the employees and the supervisors, I think is really important. Thank you, Anthony. Sally.
So I would just say, again, don't hesitate, you guys, to reach out. We are here for you too, just like you guys are here for us. It's part of all of our job to be there for each other. Communication is key. And no matter how you go about it, if you are the type of person who just pops in and says, "Hey, I just want to introduce myself," that's good too. However you feel more comfortable, just make sure you reach out.
Thanks, Ellie. And then Josh, and then what was the question I was just thinking of? If they do have someone that's inexperienced as their auditor or state's attorney role, and they're not really sure that they didn't realize the Soil Conservation District was a part of their role, and or maybe they're just new and they're inexperienced. Is there anything that I don't want to say recommended in those roles for some education, but is there anything that you can think of? Maybe just having them talk to a neighboring auditor and local state's attorney that is familiar, recommending, if they're like, oh, I don't know about that, well, okay, the district can sure call them, but it would be really helpful if the auditor or that state's attorney called someone to get more information on their role.
Yeah, definitely. So soil conservation districts can do a couple of things here to encourage participation from state's attorneys and let them know that this role exists. State's attorneys have conferences. We have two of them in North Dakota annually. Having a delegate come out and talk to us about, the needs of soil conservation districts, maybe put in their presentation that, hey, you're responsible for this, right? Finding someone to come do that would be a good way to at least start the conversation and say, we're here, we may need help, just wanted to let you know we're here and that we need your help. I think that would be a good way to do it. As attorneys, it's important to note that we don't know everything. It's our job to represent and provide legal advice, but we often work based off of information provided to us by the other subject matter experts, so to speak. So in your guys' world, you are the experts, right? We rely on you to inform us on how soil conservation districts get their missions accomplished. And then we can provide advice on how the law might help or hinder that process. We can't tell you how to do your work, right? And so um, building those relationships up front before there's an emergency of some kind, I think would be a good way to let your state's attorney know, hey, you're on our radar. We know we work with you. We wanted to let you know who we are, what we're up to. Here's some things we got going on. And then if there starts to be a conflict where you might need a state's attorney, get them involved early. Right? I said early involvement will lead to a better result at the end of a conflict of some kind. So I think all those things would work better to get your state's attorney on board with. They're supposed to be helping you out.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I want to mention the HR Collaborative too. They're always, you guys are familiar with the HR Collaborative. It's a huge piece of, where we suggest going to sometimes. So if you have a question about, maybe I should reach out to the HR Collaborative, just ask your auditor or whoever, if that's somebody that you should reach out to. Okay, so one comment in the chat was one thing our SCD does with the commission is invite them to our achievement award dinner. So that personal invitation, if it's, maybe you're sending out flyers or postcards, just add your commissions in there, or a list of people. It's a great way to build relationships. And so then you give updates there on what they did for the year. It's more of a social atmosphere, so we can have that one-on-one with them and give them some prime rib. Well, that might get them there, I suppose. You get some prime rib. Yeah, and Hannah, yeah, great tip. Start building relationships before the problem arises. I talk about that with documentation. I'm like, have you been documenting this instead of after 3 years? No. Document to the HR Collaborative always talks about documenting things before the problems really arise. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys being on here. I'll just give you one last minute if there's any other questions you guys have as we kind of wrap things up. Thank you again, Anthony, Sally, and Josh for joining us. This is recorded. Once we get the link, I will send that out. You guys, if you have any resources that you would like to share with the districts, please send them my way so I can put that in the email. I will email out when the link is and any resources that can help you as well. So, all right, it doesn't look like I have any. I am going to stop the recording and then we will